Welcome to this session on blogs. We are going to be talking about blogs and how they can be used in education. And in addition, I want to give you a little overview and introduction to the concept of RSS because it's something that can be applied and used with blogs, wikis, websites. Virtually any content that's on the web can have an RSS feed with it. So I think it's important for you to learn what that is. So in today's session, we have some specific outcomes. One, I'd like you to understand what blogs are, of course, and then to be able to describe the benefits and drawbacks of blogs. I'd like you to be able to analyze when and how blogs might be used in instruction, and to be able to apply universal design for learning principles to the use of blogs, as well as consider the National Educational Technology Standards for students. So we're going to start off with a review of Universal Design for Learning. We'll also review the nets for students, take a look at RSS, how it works and how you can set it up, and then take a look at some blogs and how you could create a blog, how some of the considerations and guidelines that you really need to be mindful of as we take a look at blogs and using them for instructional purposes. So first, let's do a review of Universal Design for Learning. So as you probably remember, there are three principles in Universal Design for Learning. And the first principle is that we need to be working with the information that we're presenting to students and have multiple means of representing or presenting that. So basically we want to give learners various ways of acquiring information and knowledge. So some of the ways we do that is by providing multiple examples to highlight the critical features by changing text, by changing font size, color, arrows, underlining, highlighting, anything that's going to help to make something stand out or to emphasize its importance. We also want to potentially provide multiple media and formats. So we could do something in an audio version as well as visual. We could have text. We could also have something that's acted out by students. We could use manipulatives where students are actually kinesthetically involved in seeing what it is that we're giving an example of for, if we're talking about for a lot of math concepts and for science concepts, models are incredibly helpful for us to be able to understand knowledge. And then just to support the background context by giving students the information that they need in order to be able to understand whatever it is that we're talking about currently. So principle number 2 is providing multiple means of action and expression. So this is where students are given the opportunity to demonstrate what they know. So letting them have different ways of showing what they know rather than just writing an answer every time. Perhaps they could do a slideshow or a video, or they could do an audio explanation of something. Perhaps they could draw a concept map or an outline of the material. Perhaps just drawing something would be a way for them to demonstrate what they know. So we really want to be careful that we're clear on what it is that students need to know, but we want to make sure that we give them lots of different ways and be flexible in our expectations of how they can show us what they have learned. Principle 3, multiple means of engagement. So as we're presenting information and helping students gain knowledge, we're allowing them to interact with that in different ways. So one of the most powerful ways to do that, of course, is that we have personalized instruction for students. And by personalized, I mean that the information and the knowledge that we're teaching, the instruction that we're giving, is relevant to the students. They can understand the reason for learning it. It might be because we've learned something in the past, we're going to learn something in the future. This is an intermediary step. Just letting students know that can be very helpful to them so they can see the connection between it. Giving appropriate challenges for students. So if we're learning about the Civil War, for example, and we're reading a novel about it, have some options of different novels for students to read, different reading levels and perhaps different viewpoints so that it's challenging and motivating for students. Think too about affective learning, the whole emotional side of learning, and then just again, as much as possible, provide multiple and flexible options for engagement. So let's also consider the nets. Remember, there are 6 of them. They range, number 1, creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration, research and information fluency, critical thinking, problem solving and decision making, digital citizenship, technology, operations, and concepts. So as we consider blogs, particularly today, think about how these standards can be expressed via blogs. And I think you'll see that really all of them can be involved in using blogs. But we do need to be careful in whatever tool that we're using with students that the tool isn't the means. It's a means to an end. You know, the standards, if we want students to be creative and to be able to communicate, using a blog could be an excellent way to do that. But we don't want to do a blog just for the sake of doing a blog. It's rather that we want students to be able to learn and think more critically. So I'd like you to go to the links and watch this video. It's called A Vision of Students Today. The reason I want you to take a look at it, even though it's a few years old and some of you may have seen it before, is that it's a really good reminder for us of where our students are at and the kinds of learning that they expect or that they desire to be involved in our classrooms. And as you take a look at it, consider to your own practice. Where are you at? How flexible are you in your instruction and in the opportunities that you give students for personalization and individualization in their learning? So as we think about individualization with instruction and with learning in our educational system, something that has really opened up the world for individualization is the switch from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0. And it's not as if there's a category of tools on the web that this is Web 1.0, this is Web 2.0. But there has been a pretty dramatic shift in how the web has changed over the past number of years. So in its infancy, the web really was controlled by people who had a certain degree of knowledge and practice. It wasn't just anybody who could create material to have on the web. These people were webmasters, and they were called that for a reason because they were the ones who really controlled what went on the web. They were the ones who had the ability to be able to put information there for the rest of us to view. Well, with Web 2.0, we no longer have that control by a webmaster. Of course, you know, there are certainly websites that do have a webmaster, but there are a myriad of sites available that any one of us could go on, and we can now create our own information and we can be our own publishers. So this has opened up the world of publishing and putting your voice out there in incredible ways. Just, you know, a quick cursory glance at YouTube shows the amazing things that you can learn, some which you probably don't want to learn, and images that you can see that, again, perhaps you don't want to see, but nonetheless, somebody was able to publish them. So the individual now has this amazing capacity and power, really, to publish on the web for the world to see. This, of course, creates incredible opportunities for each one of us. There also, as you can imagine, would be downsides to this power and this potential. However, we're just going to today, for our session right now, concentrate on the possibility of one particular tool that's gives us some really easy ways and powerful ways to publish, and that's blogs. However, before we get into blogs specifically, I'd like us to learn a little bit about RSS. So RSS stands for Really Simple Syndication, and I'd like you to go to the links and view the video about RSS. It's called RSS in Plain English. It's done by the Common Craft folks who just do an amazing job with taking ideas and making them really understandable for all of us. So essentially what RSS does is it allows you to receive automatic updates on blogs, wikis, websites, all kinds of material on the web. In order to get this material, however, you need a reader. So a couple of examples of readers would be NetVibes and Google Reader. and I'm going to show you how to use Google Reader. In essence, what an RSS feed is, it's kind of like, you sign up for a magazine subscription or newspaper subscription. Gets delivered to your door front or to your mailbox whenever there's a new edition. Well, an RSS does the same thing. Every time that the author of a blog or wiki or whatever it is you've subscribed to puts new material on that site, that material or that notification is sent to your reader. This way you just have to go to one place, to your reader, to see what new information has been posted rather than physically going and checking out every single one of those other sites, which could be extraordinarily tedious, especially if nothing new has been posted. So here's an example of a Google Reader page, and as you can see, there's information on the left-hand side where it says subscriptions. There's a list of all the subscriptions that this reader, which happens to be me, has subscribed to. If you take a look here, here's one of the specific ones. This is a blog by David Truss, and you can see the number 2 behind it. That means that since the last time I've checked, there are 2 new posts or articles that have been put onto this particular site. Now, I don't have to even go to that site now to check it out, but here they are right here. It tells me that there's 2 new articles. It gives me just the first sentence or so of the article, so I can choose at this point if I want to read the article, if I just want to mark it as read, which means that I didn't read it but I don't want to have it on my list anymore, or I can click and go right to the blog itself to see what else is there. So this one page brings all of this information together for me. So on that subscription page, you can see along the scroll bar is there. I could have hundreds, if I wanted to, subscriptions, and every time something new was published or posted, it would show up on my subscriptions page. This is an RSS symbol. You've probably seen it on different web tools. It's often orange, sometimes it's blue, sometimes people have slightly different versions of it, but essentially it looks like this, kind of the radio wave look. So every time you see that, what it means is that the author or creator of that particular site has said, please pay attention to me, follow me, I've got information that I want to share with you. So if you see that, that tells you that you can set up an RSS feed with that particular tool. So if you click on that tool and you've created a reader, it's going to again put this information onto your reader site. So here's an example of one. This is the David Truss Paradigms for Your Thoughts blog, and as you can see, he's got the orange RSS feed button. So if I wanted to create a subscription to his site, I would just click on that orange button, so to speak. Sometimes you'll also see this this symbol up in the toolbar, the URL bar, and if you click on it there, it'll take you to the same thing. So if I've set up a Google Reader, and to do that you need to have a Google account, which isn't difficult to do either, but so you've created that, you click on the button, and it'll open up a page that might look exactly like this, but it'll look something like this. Essentially what it's doing is saying, great, I'm so happy you want to subscribe. What reader are you going to use? So I happen to have, again, like I said, chosen a Google Reader, but you'll see there's NetVibes there, there's my Yahoo, there's Bloglines, there's PageFlakes, there's all different kinds of readers that are available out there. One of the reasons I've chosen Google is that it's pretty well established. I really can't foresee that Google's going to be going away anytime soon, so it gives me a little bit more confidence in its reliability. So I choose my reader, I click on that particular button, then it opens up to this page. So for me, I want to add this particular subscription to my Google Reader, and there it is. It's shown up on my Google Reader page again. So now I know that I've got this new subscription, and every time David Truss posts something on his blog, I'm going to get a notification of it. So it's pretty simple to do, and there are tutorials to walk you through the steps too if you've forgotten how to do something. So now that you have a good idea about RSS feeds and how they can be used, let's talk about blogs. Blogs are one of the oldest tools really on the internet, and they're really one of the easiest to use. They have an amazing range of possibilities. Some teachers or others use them really as a website with links and documents and other materials that reside in their blog. Others use them simply as a web log, so to speak, where they're keeping track of thoughts and ideas. Um, but really, a blog can be used by almost any age of student. Younger students who can't type too well could dictate their thoughts and ideas onto a blog. Blogs give you the opportunity to share what you are learning or what you know or what you want others to know about with people all over the world. You can put little widgets on your blogs to show where people have logged onto your blog from, which can be pretty motivating for students. So again, I'm going to have you go to the Common Craft folks, watch a short video about blogs, which will give you a bit of a background and overview on what blogs are and what they can do. So, as you can see from the blog example, there are all kinds of reasons to use blogs. We're going to focus today on educational blogs, and this slide has a list of a number of blog providers. There, again, just as there were with readers, there's all kinds of options out there. These are some of the ones that have been around for a while. They have a bit of an educational bent to them oftentimes, and so some of them provide some really nice features for education and for students. So Blogger is one of the most common ones. Most of these are free, which is another great reason to use them as an educator. EduBlogs allows you to set up individual accounts with students and put password protection on them, which is something that's important to think about with students. So all of these can be accessed through the web and can give you different options for how you're going to use blogs. So before you actually create a blog or establish a blog, it's important or helpful to take a few minutes and really think about why you're doing this. Is it a communication tool that you want to express your own opinions and feelings and thoughts? If so, probably using it in an educational way might not be the most useful. Is it going to be a way for you to communicate primarily with parents and students? Is it going to be a way for your students to communicate with one another, with the world at large? What is the purpose for the blog? Because once you've thought about that, that may help you define what the name of the blog is. You know, you could always call it Mrs. Smith's blog if you wanted to, or maybe you want to do something that's going to be a little more descriptive. Whatever it is, make sure it's something memorable and not too terribly long. Oftentimes, if it's too long, it's going to be too difficult for students and parents to remember. Hopefully they'll bookmark it, but you just never know. The next thing to think about is the organization. How are you going to organize your blog? What kind of categories are you going to use? Are you going to do it by class periods of the day, or by different content areas, or by student, or by project, or by day? You know, what exactly would be the best navigation and organization for your blog so that it makes sense for you and for students? You know, you can always go back and change things, but it's a lot easier if you can do a lot of that work up front. You know, sketching it out on a piece of paper isn't a bad idea, or thinking about an outline might be a helpful way for you to consider how to organize your blog. Something else to consider is security. Do you want this to be password protected? Do you want only your students to be able to have access to it? If you are going to allow students to have their own blog or to post on it, it's a good idea to have students just use their first names only. If you're going to post pictures of students, again, post with just initials of names would be a really good idea. And make sure that you've checked out your district and your building's policy on posting student work. it's always a good idea to let parents know what you're going to be doing and make sure they understand what their students will be involved in, so that you don't end up with some unpleasant, unforeseen consequences of something that you're working on. User guides are often provided when you create a blog, and that's another helpful way for you to decide and create um, directions and qualifications parameters for your blog. So it's important when you start thinking about posting, when you start actually posting on a blog, and if your students are going to post on a blog, to have some guidelines, do a little bit of instruction around how to do posts. I know when I've done this with my 6th grade students that if I just left them to their own devices, they would post comments like, "That's cool," or "Awesome," or "Yeah, I like that." I wanted more from them than that. That really wasn't what I had in mind. So I needed to help them understand what was expected. Um, Essentially, what students are doing is they're writing, and a blog is a fantastic way to get students to write. But as with a lot of things, we need to give them some parameters and some guidelines as to what is expected. So you should always be able to say, what was the main point of this post? What was a message I was trying to convey? Was it clear? Do I want readers to respond to this, or is this just something that's out there for information? If I want them to respond, have I asked them to do that, and have I provided a place for them to be able to comment? Is what I've written useful? Is it something that's unique and different? What were the goals of my blog again, and did this post fit in with what that goal was? Think too about the title of your post. Oftentimes, as we're scanning through so much text that comes our way, we want to make sure that the title is something that grabs people's attention and draws them into the post. Make sure a post isn't too terribly long. If it is, people will probably get tired. And if you do have a lot of information you need to convey, break it up. Make sure you put spaces between paragraphs, or put small headers in there so that people have an easier way to navigate. So also, as students or you are writing, think about, was this succinct? Oftentimes, most of the times, most of what we write can be condensed a little bit. So be succinct. Do you credit the sources? As you can see on the bottom of this page, I have a link that shows where I got some of the ideas that I'm sharing with you. Can I link what I've written to something else in my blog? It's helpful for people to be able to see continuing themes. If you're talking about a project, for example, that students are doing, have a link from that sentence back to perhaps the navigation page so people can see how things are connected. If you want people to comment, leave a space for them to be able to do that. Using tags is another great way for people to be able to stay in touch with what you've written, and we'll look at an example of how that can be used too. So here's an example of a blog that a teacher might want to follow, or somebody who's interested in technology and what's happening. So rather than me going out and doing research all the time on the latest and greatest, I just follow the savvy technologist and see what kinds of things this person is doing, because he's really done a lot of good research that's been helpful to me. So you'll notice that there's a nice navigation bar up here where I can go to different tabs. So this is how he's organized his site. Up in the corner is the RSS feed, so it's available for me to be able to subscribe to this particular blog. So every time he puts a new post up, I am able to go just for my reader and see that something is there. If it was something that was interesting to me, I can go ahead and read the article. He's also asked, or given the opportunity for people to comment on what's happening, or what he's written rather. So here's somebody has made a comment on this version of Note Scraper for Evernote, which was interesting. You'll notice there's a date there as well, so I can see how current this information is. On the bottom right side, there's a tag cloud. So you can see that there's different words there. If I clicked on any one of them, it would take me to other articles within this blog that all had that word or that tag in them. So I can see that the kind of categories that he's following. This is one of my favorite authors. Her name is Vicki Davis. She's quite an amazing woman. She teaches school classes with kids. She also teaches university classes. She blogs. She has wikis. She does amazing cross-cultural, cross-world projects with her students. And she, of course, has a blog. It's called the Cool Cat Teacher Blog. Notice her navigation across the top. She has tabs there as well. She also has tags listed here. So for this particular topic of setting up your Kindle Fire, she has tags of M-Learning, Education, eBook, and Kindle Fire. So any of those tags will take you to other writing that she's done that's related to those topics. She doesn't have an RSS feed button, however she does have a subscribe tab. So if you wanted to keep up with what Vicki was writing and thinking about, you could click on that subscribe tab. It's a really clean, easy to navigate blog, which is really nice. It helps that it's appealing. This is a student, or rather a teacher blog for high schools students. She does have student blogs as part of this teacher blog as well. So this is a place where this particular teacher has a lot of information. You know, it's her categories for organizing different things in her class. There's recent posts listed there. She even has a little quiz that's embedded. This would be a widget, that's what it's called, and you can put surveys, quizzes, all kinds of things embedded right into your blog. This is a blog that's done by a student who's about, I believe she's 8 years old. So, you know, she's young, but this blog looks really nice. She is using a blog server that has a template where she just has to drag and drop in things in there, so she didn't actually have to create the background and whatnot. Notice her visitors little widget there and all the places that people have come from to take a look at her blog, which is pretty motivating for a student, an 8-year-old, to know that you've got that kind of an audience that's reading what you have written. Pretty impressive. This is another student blog. This student's about 12 years old. Nice organization again, very clean. Easy to see where things are at. This looks like a WordPress blog. Notice he's got an RSS feed up there in the right hand corner. So different comments that people have made on his blog, posts that he's made as well. So that was an overview of blogs. Lots of information for you to absorb. So what I'd like you to do now is to think about Web 1.0, Web 2.0. Talked about that at the beginning of this session. And compare and contrast the benefits and the potential drawbacks of Web 1.0 and 2.0. And this is important for us to think about, because if we're going to use this tool, we really need to be aware of why we would use it and why we might not want to use it, or at least be aware of what some of the potential drawbacks could be. So you could make a Venn diagram, you could do you know, a 2-column pros and cons. However you choose to report this out, you could write you know, 2 paragraphs. Whatever works best for you to be able to explain what you think there. Then I'd also like you to read Vicki Davis's article on reasons to blog with students. I think this is helpful to get a perspective of a teacher who uses blogs really actively with her students. And then I would like you to examine and evaluate some blogs. So go to blogger.com, or you can choose another site. I've got a few listed under the resources page. Choose 5 blogs to evaluate. Evaluate them in terms of their layout, their succinctness, the links that they use, the navigation that's available, their purpose, whether or not they have an RSS feed. So think about all these things that we've been talking about and discussing with blogs in this session, and use that to evaluate some blogs and provide some support for your evaluation. Think too in terms of universal design for learning as well as the nets, and be critical of some blogs. I think sometimes it's helpful for us to be able to look at examples before we actually create something ourselves, because that helps us to make decisions as to what we would like to see in our own work.